Hey everybody, welcome to this new WeWeb webinar. Today I'll be alone, sadly, because Joyce has the personal emergency, so I will be alone presenting the Supabase plugin, but hopefully we can make it fun together. So again, I'm Q. I'm in charge of growth here at WeWeb, and today I wanted to talk about you of the new features we have in the Supabase plugin for WeWeb. Hey everybody, hey Anton. Lovely. It's time to find out how to work with edge function. So we'll cover this at the end of the stream, hopefully, because I've created an edge function to show you. And Francisco, is this the right place or was there a different link? I don't know what you mean. The live is on YouTube, X, LinkedIn, and Twitch. So normally either is fine. And hello, Raf. So yeah, what we'll do is that we'll deep dive into an example of the CRM template again with the Supabase plugin. So using Supabase as a backend. And by doing this, we'll see all the new features, hopefully, that are in the Supabase plugin. But mainly what you need to understand is that the Supabase plugin now, we updated it to use the SDK V2 because they now have a new SDK, JavaScript SDK. So all the features you can find in this SDK are available inside WeWeb. And by the way, while I'm speaking, don't hesitate to ask questions and stop me if I'm going too fast or if you want to ask some questions. I'll do this, my pleasure. So first thing first, I will share my screen. Okay. And so for the JavaScript, the SDK, so you see here, going to the JavaScript docs, and basically you see there was a version 1 and now the plugin is using the version 2. So I will send you the docs because everything that is available in this plugin is available inside the WeWeb plugin. So the main difference is that when you fetch, insert, update, or delete data, you can use filters and parameters like modifiers inside your query so that you can do bulk updates, for example, or you can modify the data you get or you're sending to Supabase. So this kind of query, I will zoom a little bit more and use this picture-in-picture. Yeah. So you see here, for example, you can select by name, you can select by ID, you can do stuff like this. I mean, you can chain stuff. So everything that you see here is actually available inside WeWeb in a no-code fashion. So we'll get to that really quickly. But that's really cool because before you had to always use the ID, for example, to filter records, these kind of things. And now you don't need to rely only on the IDs. You can do bulk updates, for example, saying, yeah, I want to update all my records that have a name equals or containing something, for example, this kind of thing. So to showcase you this, I recreated the CRM template, which we have with Zano. I created it with Supabase. And basically, this is a fully working template CRM app where I have like deals that are connected to contact and companies. And everything is inside a Supabase backend. Again, if I'm going too fast or if you have any questions, feel free to stop me. Or like if you want to see something really specific about the plugin, also feel free to ask so that I can, because I don't think we'll have the time in 1 hour to cover everything about the plugin. So if you want to cover something specific, don't hesitate. So the way it works is that I have a basic deals Kanban where I have all my current deals that I can drag and drop, and I have a specific order. And if I refresh the data, you see that it's the same because it gets saved to my database. I can even search for deals based on their names, for example. I can add a new deal. So we'll do this later. And those deals are linked to notes. So I can add a note. For example, this one don't have any notes. So let's add one. Need to recontact ASAP. And it gets added to the database in real time. Then I have my contacts that are linked to my deals. So it's basically the people, a table of people with the images, the company, the job title, and the email. Everything is editable. and will get saved to the DB, searchable, and I can add a contact. And you see that I can also upload a picture, and this is new also for the Supabase plugin. Now you'll be able to use the storage functions to upload or download files. So that's really cool. So these images, they are not on the WeWeb CDN, they are totally handled by Supabase. And lastly, people are linked to companies. So companies are the same, it's just a table. We zoom a little bit more with the domain, the location, the name, and the logo. And same, I can add a new company, and this is working fine. So yeah, what do you want to begin with? Maybe I will just show you the Supabase table. So if I go in my database, basically I have 4 tables. So the first one is the deals that I showed you. We've created at column a name, the name of the deal that gets displayed. It's linked to a reference to a contact, so it's actually a foreign key relationship. Then it has a status to know where it is in the Kanban, a description, and the order in the Kanban to order them like in a specific stack. Anton is asking, saying, I wish we will have a bucket API implemented finally. What do you mean by bucket API? I don't know what this is. Because normally you've got everything which is what's in the Supabase API available. Then I've got my notes, which are really simple. It's just a text, and then it's linked to a deal, so using the deal ID. My contacts, so simple columns as well, the name, picture. So the picture is actually the link, the public link to the Supabase storage file, the email and the job title, and it's linked to a company, and then companies, also with name, logo, also the public URL, the domain, and the location. And so for the logo, the way it works is that I use Supabase storage. I have a bucket called companies, and inside it, I have the logos, for example, from my companies, and this is the URL I store in the table. So the public URL, which is used to display images directly. And same for contacts with the images. Hi, Sham. Nice. An ability to save get data from it to the Supabase storage. That's available. That's what we'll see in the live. That's available as a no-code action in WeWeb. I mean, and base 64 and binary data, I mean, you don't need to encode base 64 because the way it works is that when you use storage, like in Supabase or like Amazon Web Services, you don't use base 64 anymore. You just send the file to a storage place, and then you store the link to the file inside the table, but you don't use base 64 encoded files in the table anymore. That's the way we used to use databases a long time ago. But now it's better to use storage and then store links in the database. But we'll get to this because those files were added without any code using no-code actions. So I will get really quickly on the setup on WeWeb. So basically, I've got my collections with our like the companies, deals, contacts, and notes. And the way I've done it is that for some collections, the link data is actually a lookup, like here, or I don't use lookup. Maybe I don't use lookups at all. That would be cool. Yeah. So the way I've done it, for example, for deals, is that thanks for the plugin that you've got the guided mode, which is fetching the fields of the table directly. But if you want, you can use some kind of like, it's specific to Supabase, but it's like GraphQL. It's a GraphQL-like syntax to actually fetch data related to other tables. So for example, here, because I've got the contact ID, I'm asking Supabase to give me the contact ID, name, email, and picture related to the deal. And inside the contact, I've got the company. So I ask to get back the company ID and name. And The way it works is that now I have an object called contact with all the contacts data. Inside, I've got the company with the ID and the name. And so this is the query language from Supabase. It's available in their SDK, and you can use this in WeWeb in your collections, but also in your no-code actions. And the way I do it is like for the search here, because I can search, I just use the search bar value to filter the name and the description. And because this is in the query configuration before fetching data, this is actually backend filters. So these filters are sent to Supabase, and Supabase is giving me back only the data that I required, that I asked for. So you know that the full data won't be available in the end user browser. So if you're using filtering based on the current user, for example, it's totally working. It's totally fine for secure apps. So you know that your data won't be available. And that's a way to use to create really secure web apps. So that's really cool. Yeah, it's a third level of reference here because my deal is linked to a contact and my contact is linked to a company. So that's the heavy way to do it. But yeah, but you can do any number of substeps. The only thing is that if you have many records and you do this like at many levels, it will be longer to load on Supabase side. But for like a depth of 2 with a small number, like even thousands of records, it's okay. And I never have like the whole, like every record, because most of the time you've got a search. And because those are backend filters, again, you're not loading too much data in the user browser. So yeah. One thing I can show you, which is new, is actually the classic actions that were updated. Why does it say you have invalid fields? I think it's because it's an old text that, because Supabase language is really specific and it's not recognized by, because under the hood, it's like it's JavaScript validation, and JavaScript validation is not like understanding what's this language. So we'll fix this, but it's nothing. It just works. Just that Supabase has its own language. So the way it works is that let's create a new deal, for example. So here I've got a dropdown which is linked to my my contacts collection. So I will select me. I will type a name, public facing web app for WeWeb users, and then I can I can give it a status. And the way it works is that it's a simple post to my database. So I create a deal using an insert. And now, as you can see, there are many more actions in Supabase that you can use. So the select one to get fields, insert to insert new fields, update to update, upsert to either update a record if it's existing already, or insert a new one if it's not. So it's really useful. So you don't have to do if again to know if you need to insert or update. You can do both in the same action and delete. We'll get to the storage and the functions later in the authentication. But the cool thing is that now you can still select your table, but you've got the single and the multiple mode. So I'm using the single and I'm saying which field I want to insert. So I'm letting Supabase generate the ID and the created that one. And just use the ones from my form. And then you've got all the options that are available now in the SDK that you can use. So for example, you can say that when a field is not entered, it will default to null. So it won't throw errors in your database and the database will store null. You can return the inserted rows. And if you do this, you can say, I want only the ID, I want all the fields or maybe some fields, or you can even ask to get back linked columns as we saw in the collections. Oh, sorry, it's above my, yep. Just so that my head is on top of this. So yeah, sorry. I was saying default to null here, and here return inserted rows. So minimal, guided, you can select which fields, oops, and advanced. So same with the language to get back the link columns. And this is really cool because sometimes when you insert a row, you will want to get it back in the workflow. And what you can do is that if you use this and you say a guided and you select all fields, if I insert it, so let's try it. And then you use another action, I don't know, like for example, change variable value. Select a random variable. If I bind it, now I can get back the data from my previous action, because you see here, I get the data back. And that's an option from the new SDK. So that's really cool. So here I don't need it, but it can be useful in some situations. You can even count the results, retrieve them as a CSV and make the user download it. You can use explain, which is really cool with the analyze. So this is to debug your API calls to know what's taking long for the database to execute. So when you have like really long running database queries, you can use the explain function, and you've got the whole guide from Supabase explaining you how it works. But that's really cool because now the database will kind of debug everything it has done and tell you why it has taken so long to execute, so you can optimize your database tasks, for example. And the last thing is you need to return the data actually to use this. So let me do this. But if you ask auto update linked collections, if you get back data and you've got collections linked to it, WeWeb would auto update them as well. So this is really cool to not having like to fetch many collections again after. It will be automatic. So I'm just pausing because I see many questions in the chat. Bertrand, we are filtering many collections depending on an option in a select box. This should also reduce the data volume retrieved from Supabase. When should we use select? What's the most important use case? Select is just to get back data. So I don't know what's exactly your use case. But select is to get data when you don't want to use the collection, for example. So when you use data only one time, for example, you can use a select inside the workflow to reuse it later. To select, for example, one element only, or these kind of things. Otherwise, if you need it, like in many places across the app, you should use a collection. Can we handle real-time rows actions at WeWeb side? Yeah, if you set up your database as a real-time one in the plugin, that was the same in the old plugin, but you can select the real-time tables, and every time there's an update, the data will get updated in WeWeb in real time. No need to fetch the collections. So you just have to enable them here, and in Supabase, you can enable real-time here. So yeah, I don't have any uses in this use case because I don't need real-time tables for CRM, but yeah, you can do this. I just tested a new Supabase action this morning and was wondering how WeWeb interacts with RLS. Is it just using the service key to bypass RLS? No. Actually, no. This is a great question. WeWeb use only the public key because the SDK gets added inside the app. I mean, for the Supabase data source. So if you have RLS policies, here I have RLS policies that I can do anything when I'm authenticated. So people can like insert stuff, read stuff, all these kind of things. So what I've done is that I'm actually logged in as a user inside WeWeb using Supabase authentication. We'll get to this later. But no, a WeWeb app acts like any other front-end app, so it's respecting the row-level security. Okay. And the new thing is that you can use the multiple option to add many rows, for example. So here you can bind the list of rows to add or add item by item. So this is really cool to do bulk updates. So here I broke my automation, so I will redo it really fast. Sorry. And don't worry, this example will get available in a few days. I will just have to finish some stuff, but you will get the access to these templates So status is here, contact is here, and name is here. Okay, and if I add it, then I fetch the deals and I close my model. I go back to my app. So it was added inside my Kanban. Nice. Now, if I want to move it to closing, it's working. And how does it work? It's a simple update on my Kanban on item moved. So here it's an update. And now the main difference is that you can update by primary key. So that's what I'm doing. So I have the element that was updated. So I update it. And I can select which fields I want to update. And same, you can return the updated rows, count the results, retrieve a CSV, easy explain, and auto update link collections. And same, if you want to update many of them or insert many of them or delete many of them, you've got the custom filters, which are basically all the filters. We've got a link to the documentation that are available here inside the filter. So you can say column is equal to a value, not equal, greater, less than, contained in a range, these kind of things, mutually exclusive. So you can do many things like to select multiple records at once or create multiple records at once, these kind of things. So it's really cool because that's enabled by the new SDK. So I can say, for example, I want to update all the deals where the column, I don't know, name in an array or like contain something, match a string, for example. So the column name match the value, I don't know, WeWeb. And if I do this, it will, as a string, sorry. If I do this, it will actually update all the deals that have WeWeb in their name. So that's a way to do bulk actions. And then I've got the options, apply if, so I can buy all of this. So you can do really like complex stuff to do like bulk updates or bulk deletes in your apps, which is really cool. So let me check the questions again. Yes, updated, but how should we handle it? If I edit a row and it updates, what will happen? So if you edit a row and you've got real-time data and it updates, it will update in real time. So your database will get updated, the display will get updated, and it will be saved. So actually using real time is really cool, but also you need to think about it because basically you can also break stuff because every time a user is changing something, it will change the database in like this. But that's as simple as that. And LMBK, we have a collection of group entity, and each one have a subgroup entity. Could we search by text on subgroup title now using filters on group collection? I think you can do this in the select, maybe. Let's try. So if I do deals and advanced or options, filters, yeah, here you can select by the filter. So you can do this inside the select. In the collection, it's not available yet because we are working on this, but for like all the plugins, it's a way to filter by sub objects, but you can't do this right now. But it's coming, it's in the roadmap, definitely. So I will just recreate my updates deal. So deals by ID, by event item ID, and I want only the order and the status is this one. So the new status from the Kanban, that's actually the event from the Kanban, and the new index is this one. So yeah, that's how we handle the new bulk actions. Before going to the functions, I want to show you how to handle storage. So let's go to my companies view. And you see that my companies, they've got a logo. So basically, if I create a company, I will want to add a logo to them when I'm using my model here. So the way it works is that now you have access to Supabase storage to handle this inside WeWeb. So let's create a new company. So let's choose, what company can we choose? Segment, for example. So segment logo. We have to find the logo. Edges. I'll take this one. Let's call it segments. Up. And now what I will do, sorry, is that I will fill my form. So yes, www.segment.com. It's also in San Francisco, California, USA, and upload the logo. And now let's see what's happening under the hood. Okay, so the first thing I'm doing is actually use one of our new no-code actions to upload a file to the Supabase storage. So as you can see here, you've got many storage actions to upload a file, replace a file, move a file, copy a file, delete a file, create a signed URL to download a file, so an URL that will expire after a certain time, and retrieve a public URL to get the public URL of the file, basically. And this, and you can also list all the files you've got in a bucket. So this is really helpful to interact with Supabase storage. So in my example, I've got my storage, and I want to store my company's logo inside my logos folder in my company's bucket here. So the way I'm doing it is really simple. Inside WeWeb, I'm using a upload a file action. I'm entering my bucket, which I can bind to if I want to, so the bucket name. The path is actually the name of the folder slash the name of the file, because actually folders in computer are only strings that are prepended to file names. Like, it's a visual way for humans to see them, but where computer works is that it's just like the name of the folder slash the name of the other folder, if there's one, and you get it until the file name. And to get it, I simply go inside my form, and because I used a upload file element, I have my file name here. So what I've done is simply concatenating logos slash and the name of my file, segment.png. And for the file, it's actually the whole value of the inputs. So this is the JavaScript representation of a file object, and you don't need to do anything else. When we'll test this action, the file input element will directly send the file data to Supabase, and Supabase will store it. So you don't need to upload it to our CDN, you don't need to base64 encode it, no need for any of this. It will get added to the storage right now. Sorry, just getting from question from Leticia. I'm late. Hope there'll be a way to ask you a question. When is next time? So you can ask question right now if you want. There won't be any next time. This replay will get updated, uploaded on YouTube. But next webinar is not on Supabase, actually. It's with one of our clients. Okay. And then you've got other options. So if you want to, sorry, let me reopen it. If you want to handle the cache, the content type, so it's automatic, and upsert. So if the image name is already existing, in this case, it will update it, for example. So I tickled it. And if I test it and I go in my logs, you see that it was added, and now I have a full path and an ID because it was uploaded on Supabase. So if I go back in my bucket and I reload my Supabase page, if I go into logos, you see that now I have segment available here, which was uploaded from my form to my bucket. So it's not available to use in my DB and to display on the web because I obviously get a public URL. So if I use it, it gets displayed on the web. So yeah, we uploaded a file using a no-code action inside Supabase. And what I do is then I do a classic inserts into my companies table with the name, the domain, and the location. And for the logo, there's two ways to do it. Either you can use the action we saw before, get public URL, or most of the time what's easiest is also like your buckets, they have a classic, a specific URL tied to them. And to get the file, you just have to concatenate the URL of the bucket with the file path. And the file path, I can get it from my previous action. So you see that Supabase is sending me the path back. So I know that the URL of the file is actually the URL of my bucket plus the file path, which is logos/segment.png. So that's what I will store in my DB. So if I go back to Supabase in my table, companies, you see that now I have segment with my file public URL, and it's created in my database. And now I fetch the collections, I close the model, and if I go back in preview mode, I've got my segment record. And yeah, basically the other storage actions are just to move files, copy files, delete files. So it's like what we've seen before, it's CRUD actions, but for the Supabase storage feature. Just getting the latest questions. How do you manage a many-to-many relationship in Supabase and in WeWeb, including a many-to-many with images that would have been uploaded in Supabase first, not in from WeWeb? It really depends on your project. It's really hard to answer right now, but what I would do is that I would, many-to-many, you need an intermediary table, which is where you store like links from one table to the other one. And like for having multiple images, what you can do is also having an array of values because Supabase is a PostgreSQL database, and in PostgreSQL you can have columns that are actually arrays, so have multiple values, so you can have like multiple URLs of images. Can we have a Supabase URL for the bucket as a system variable? You need to add it in WeWeb because there's no way using their API to get it back. But I could be using a variable inside my WeWeb project. That would work too. And thanks, Guillaume. Yeah, exactly. I'm getting many questions on how to build with Supabase. I wanted to showcase the new features, but yeah, we have like office hours and onboarding sessions. If you have any question on how to do stuff with WeWeb and Supabase or like Xano or anything else. And also Supabase is hosting office hours if you need to answer questions about Supabase. Thanks, Guillaume, for mentioning. And you can find these office hours in the question. So in WeWeb, in the question mark icon. So let me go back in edit mode here. So attend our office hours, and you see here. So normally it's launching. Yeah, this. So you can join our onboarding session if you're new to WeWeb or office hours. Okay. Now the last thing is that I've got my authentication with Supabase. So it's really classic. What I've done is that I used the sign-in email and password with Supabase, but you see that you have now many more actions that you can use. You can sign in with phone and password, use a OAuth provider, one-time password, magic link, and some kind of enterprise stuff. And you've got also the fetch user, update user, all these kind of actions to use the inside the Supabase authentication. And what's cool is that when you use Supabase authentication, like the plugin inside WeWeb and the Supabase data source, the user token, the access token, which is inside the session. So I don't know if we see here access token, which will get sent to the Supabase storage automatically, so you don't need to do this. So you know that the user will only get data corresponding to his or her row-level security rules. So that's really cool. So one thing that you can do is, for example, be using, I didn't have time to finish this for the live, I'm really sorry, but we'll do a tutorial for this. But for example, you could be using an off Google provider. Maybe it's working, I don't remember, but I think I missed something to finish it. But the way it works is that you select the off provider, then you can select any provider. You need to also enable it inside Supabase. So if I go in my authentication, I think it works because I've got one user from Google. So maybe I'm just, yeah, I think I finished it. I don't remember. But yeah, you've got your users table, and inside the providers here, you can add many new providers like Google or like Bitbucket, Apple, this kind of thing. So to enable them, you need to check Supabase documentation on this, and also each of the providers documentation, because it's different for all of them. So I won't be covering how to implement them, but basically this action enables you to use the OAuth provider inside WeWeb. So normally if I do this and I log in with Google, and then I use my user, I will be logged in as this user inside my WeWeb app. So here, yeah, you see it's my user, my Gmail user. But let's say I'm going back and I log in as my WeWeb user using Google that I created with email and password. Normally it will also work. I will get back as my WeWeb user. So here I need to continue because it's a test app, so it's really specific to this app, but when you publish for Google, you don't see this message again. And if I go in my user, in the variables, you see that I'm Quentin at weweb.io, so it's working. So actually I finished it. But the way it works is that you need to create, I mean, we have a whole tutorial on the documentation for this, but you need to create an app on Google side, you need to link it to Supabase, and then use the action inside WeWeb. There are new options Supabase provider off like scope, and some Supabase off stop working. I wish to have two redirections options for success, including private page and public. No, we can redirect to a private page because that's how the web works. That's why we have a tutorial on Ton. When you redirect to a page from a provider, the browser doesn't know what's the user because it's coming from another website. That's why you need a public page, which here I call post Google or off redirect page, which its only job is to redirect to your private page here. And my off action is actually redirecting to this page. And why I do this? Because the browser needs to check the token that was sent by Google or like Twitter, for example, and store it to know, okay, no, I store this token, and WeWeb can now check if the user is authenticated or not. If you're redirecting directly to a private page, this token won't be seen and stored, so it won't work. And that's in the documentations and the tutorials. So you need to do this every time you're using an OAuth provider with Supabase or Xano. And there's nothing WeWeb can do about this. It's all like browsers work under the hood. The client doesn't like a glitch. Normally it's invisible. It's really fast. And all web apps are working like this. So I don't know what to say, sadly, because we can't do anything. Like that's something that's really how the web browsers work. And the last thing I wanted to show you is are actually functions. Because there's a thing I should do when I update, for example, the order of my deals here. I update the status, for example, and the order for the ticket, I drag and drop, but I need also to update the order for all the other tickets so that the time I go back, they're in the same order. So the way I've done it, I'm just showing you in the database how it works. So in my deals, I've got a order column here, which is the order for a specific stack. And so every time I'm moving a deal, I need to update all the other deals that are in the same columns. One way to do this would be to do a loop inside WeWeb and update all of the tickets, because in the Kanban, when I do this, for example, in my events, I got the updated list. So all the items that were updated as well. The only thing is that it's not safe to do this in the user browser, because if a user is closing the tab just after having moved the tickets, then the loop won't be finished and the other tickets won't get updated. So the way I've done it is that I've done this on the backend. And to do this, I used a edge function inside Supabase. So it's one of the two new actions, the Postgres function and the edge function. So basically, Postgres function are Postgres using the PostgreSQL language inside Supabase, and edge functions are using JavaScript or Python and are hosted everywhere. So you can choose either one according to your need. Here, I will show edge function because that's the most known abroad. But you can also use Postgres function, and they have a whole documentation on which one to choose according to your needs. And the way it works is that I can specifically ask to execute a function by its name using a specific method. So get, post, put, patch, delete. I can send data to it. So here I send my list of updated deals. And then I send the authorization token, because for this specific function, I need the user token. So what I've done is that inside the user, I go into the session and I got the access token as a bearer token. And basically my function is a function inside Supabase here in the edge functions. So this one, and when you call it with an update with like a list of deals, it will loop over all these deals and update the order to update all of their order to get them in the right order. And so edge functions are kind of low code. They're even code Postgres functions too. So you need to write them using code, and then you can host them on Supabase. So I will show you them really quickly, and then you should follow their docs on how to write them. But basically, my function is like this. So it's using the Supabase client. Then it's getting my Supabase API keys, and it's getting back the user from the authorization, the bearer token that I sent from WeWeb. And you see it's getting back the deals that were sent from the action as the data. And now what I do is that I iterate over all these deals and I increment their index. And then I return a response, so okay, or a message. So every time I will call this function, it will loop over all the deals and update their order. And so this is really specific because you can do actions that you can do any type of action that you want. This one is just saying hello someone. This one is updating deals. You can also call other APIs. You can scrape. There are many examples on Supabase on what to do with functions. But basically, when you push these functions live, so when you do Supabase functions deploy, they will get sent into Supabase, and you can use them inside WeWeb. So basically, WeWeb will call these endpoints and send back the data you sent here in the headers, the query string, and the body. Yeah, you can use JavaScript inside the PostgreSQL using an extension, but it doesn't support includes and libraries. That's why I use the edge function, because yeah, like when you use JavaScript, you can use all the libraries. And Anton, I really appreciate if you, Joyce, will make an edge function 101 tutorial for using web. Actually, the way I've done it is that if you go on Supabase documentation, they have 101s for everything. Like all these things, they do awesome YouTube videos. And the way you call it from WeWeb is actually just giving to WeWeb the function's name and doing, it's like using the REST API plugin. You send data to your function. But I would strongly suggest going to these docs, so I will send them to you in the chat. Because Supabase has done an amazing job explaining all the use cases. So for example, working with Supabase storage, you've got an example on GitHub. And this is basically JavaScript at the end of the day. And they have YouTube videos. And as I said, using them in WeWeb is just giving the name of the function you want to call, which method, which headers, query string, and body. So it's really like calling any API using the REST API plugin, just so that you can you don't have to do this by hand. You just have to give the function name. But it's a simple API call. And when I do this, the way what's happening is that if I see the logs here, it's sending data to my here you see to my function. So with the updated deals and the headers, and I get back the status okay from my function. But like using function from WeWeb is actually a piece of cake, really easy. It's just that like creating them, you need to check Supabase docs. And for Postgres function, it's the same. You just invoke a function using its name, if I remember well. So if I were to call a Postgres function, yeah, you use a function name, then you give argument to the function. You've got some options, and also like to use database function. If you go in the database functions, they have some amazing documentation for this, and you create a function with its name, and then you should use the PostgreSQL language. But we'll definitely do a 101 for some simple examples if needed on the documentation. But the thing I would say for this is that it's definitely coding at the end of the day. So you will need to have some coding basics to use Supabase functions because WeWeb won't do anything for you. We can't write functions for you, and Supabase has an amazing AI to help you with this. What we do from WeWeb is calling functions for you, but writing functions is actually on Supabase side. So yeah. But we'll definitely think about like some tutorials to show you how we've done it. But yeah, this is coding. I mean, I've done it because yeah, I know to code, and there's sadly nothing I can say to you to abstract this right now, except using GitHub Copilot, for example, because WeWeb can't abstract this right now. If you were to use like no-code functions on top of on Supabase, I would definitely recommend using FastGen, which is kind of like Xano, but on steroids, to my opinion, on top of Supabase. It's a young startup. We're working with them. They're really cool. And you can use like their UI to create API endpoint that are kind of like creating a function. I think under the hood, they're creating Supabase functions, and you can query them using their URL. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for today's live. Do you have any more questions? So I tried to cover everything. Obviously, the docs are already up and running. Joyce made an awesome work writing the docs on docs.weweb.io. And everything is documented, even functions, storage. So feel free to check the docs there. And we'll definitely do more tutorials around it in the weeks to come. But yeah. Yeah, Anton, I definitely get it, but if you want to write functions, you will need to install this on your computer. So maybe we'll maybe do a tutorial to help. But again, WeWeb can't abstract that, so it's really dependent on Supabase. So you will still need to install JavaScript at the end of the day. And yeah, it's kind of hard because they are not using NPM, but another JavaScript runtime, which is called Dino. So I had to discover it also this week. So yeah, that's why I recommended FastGen if you're like not a coder. So yeah, any more questions? But yeah, keep in mind that Supabase, at the end of the day, it's more like kind of a low-code tool, which is really powerful. But you still need to know some SQL, some JavaScript, especially SQL logic to write row-level security, to write functions. So yeah. So if you're really a pure no-coder, I would suggest using Xano. And if you want to try, you can also use FastGen on top of Supabase. I mean, I love Supabase because it's really scalable and it's really powerful. To my opinion, it's an amazing backend. I'm really amazed by what they do. And also setting up OAuth on Supabase is way easier than on Xano. But yeah. Can you please go over retrieving, displaying asset from Supabase storage in WeWeb again? Yeah, sure. So let me. So displaying is just storing the image on your table. So you should always use the public URL. And to don't have this in deals, but let's go in contacts. And to create or upload something in Supabase storage, you've got the upload file action, but also here listing all the files, replacing the file, moving the file, copying, deleting files, and also retrieving sign URLs and public URLs. So the way I do it is just uploading using my upload file with my file input value. And this is all documented on the documentation already. Do not worry. But this is as simple as using, it's like the database select, insert, update, only it's for files. So that's the way you do it. And the only difference is head of tables, you've got buckets. That's it. So we can display as stored assets stored in private buckets. Yes, you can, because buckets have policies that are kind of like row-level security for tables. So using the right user token, you can. And you can use sign URLs for this that are expiring URLs. But yeah, it's all documented on the Supabase docs. Because WeWeb, at the end of the day, only follows the SDK's rules. So as we said, with row-level security, it's the same with policies on the buckets. Jan, thank you for the explanations. Thanks. So that you can do almost everything in Supabase from WeWeb. Hopefully, yeah. Normally, we cover every feature from the new SDK. So if one is missing, don't hesitate. But normally, we've done everything. And congrats for the team. Yeah, definitely, it was a huge work from my roommate, actually, Alexi, who was in charge of the updates to the Supabase V2 SDK. So yeah, congrats to him because it was a huge job from his side. And my understanding is Supabase as user auth do recommend it. Yeah, I love Supabase authentication. It's really cool. It's really powerful. Like and they have like magic link, one-time password, everything. I mean, they began as a auth provider. So yeah, I love it. Cool. So hopefully that's everything for today. And next week, same hour, same day, we'll be live with PwCs. So this big auditing company is actually creating many apps using WeWeb for themselves and their clients. So we'll be live with Mathieu from their side, showcasing what they've done using WeWeb and Supabase. And that will be really interesting because they have like strong data requirements and the apps are running in their own internal network and they don't have access to internet. So they are like self-hosted. So feel free to add this. We'll communicate about this live on next Tuesday, hopefully. So feel free to come and to ask questions. And in the meantime, have a good week, everybody.